Hello and welcome. I am your host, JP John Potts from the Two Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion, one of the greatest minds and bookers ever in the history of the business, the Games Master, the Taskmaster, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
Excellent, JP. How are you doing, my friend?
Very good, very good. What do you think about the world of wrestling right now, post WrestleMania? The world of wrestling.
I think it's doing very, very well, don't you?
For sure. I know they had a huge sellout streak going on, but it seems like they're no slowing down as far as right now is concerned. I know The Rock is going to be away a little bit, Roman Reigns is going to be away, but it seems like no slowing down for WWE.
No, and they're going to continue this bloodline story, especially since they got Faku's son and Jacob Fatu. I mean, it's going to be
Yes.
this is just another chapter they're going through. Plus, you
Yep.
got Sammy back over, Kevin's over, uh, Randy's come back into the fold, Sheamus is back in. Uh, there's so many storylines they're going with. McIntyre, Rollins, uh, Becky Lynch, uh, Ripley when she gets her leg fixed. I mean, they're loaded. I don't think I've ever seen a group of this depth of talent ever in the wrestling business.
Hey, high praise for sure. I feel like they're definitely on a roll right now. H is doing a pretty good job as Booker.
Unbelievable job. Unbelievable job.
So I had a couple questions come in, just random questions here, and kind of almost pertains to a little bit because WWE right now, obviously, you got the Cody Rhodes title, which is the WWE title, and the other title, which is the World title, which Damian Priest holds. What did you think when WCW had two belts? I know it's a little bit before you as far as coming in and booking, but WCW had the big gold belt, which was kind of the world title, sometimes known as the NWA title, sometimes known as the international title, sometimes just known as the Big Gold, but they also had the WCW World Title as well. I know right before you came in, Flair and Sting combined the titles and it became just the Big Gold. But what do you think about that, having two World Championships?
Well, I think it's confusing, but it's also been not so much in wrestling, but in boxing. How many champions are there in each weight division? You know what I mean?
Yeah, geez. Yeah.
I saw where Tyson Fury's next match, if he wins, that'll be the first time there's been a unification champion, meaning he's won all the belts since Lennox Lewis.
Wow. So a couple
Yeah,
decades there. Wow.
yeah. So I still don't understand if one's a world champion, the other one's the universal champion, right?
Yep.
That's the only thing I don't get, meaning how they've positioned their programs. Do you get that?
It's weird because Cody's the WWE champion, but then there's also the world champion because Roman combined the titles already, and USA complained that they didn't have a champion on the show. So it was weird. It almost feels like that's like the Intercontinental title or the secondary title or like the other title.
Yeah. It just maybe this is just me. I know, and I hate add more belts to it, but maybe do you make one the champion of Raw or SmackDown, so they taking care of their commitments with their network. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it seems like almost like that's what they're trying to do, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I
We
mean, I think right now too, though, it's almost getting to be a mute point that people aren't making a big thing of it because they're rolling so high right now. You know what I mean? And in fact, I think they're buying into it. I go back to WrestleMania. when Priest won, they wouldn't have got that pop in the combination of Punk, McIntyre, Rollins, and Priest now if there wasn't the money in the bank. And I was not a big money in the bank proponent, but it's worked out well for them. And everything they're touching right now is turning to gold.
It does seem like having two champs hasn't hurt them really, but it does feel like Cody's like the real champ, or Roman was like the real champ. The other's kind of secondary. Do you think with WCW when they had the two champs, that's why they combined it because they didn't want to have some like a secondary title? They wanted one major title because there was a few years there where they had two champs.
Well, I'm just going to assume, like you're mentioning, that not knowing what went on, that's what they did. They didn't want to confuse the people.
When WCW did have two champions, like the WCW champion had the belt, and the world champion, the international champion had the big gold belt. It just felt like okay. I know it's not technically right, but it always felt like whoever the big gold belt was the champion. So when you guys combined it, and then really you can take over the book, you combine the big gold belt is just the world title. So to me, it's almost sometimes the look of it too.
Oh, yeah. The look of it plays a big role in it. Uh, I would not be surprised if we see a change in maybe McIntyre or whoever ends up with that belt. When they sort that out, they may change the look of the belt completely.
It seems like they're making all the title belts on Raw have like that big gold belt feel to it. Like the tag titles now almost look like it to a certain extent. The women's title does to a certain extent.
Yeah. So where are we going with that? You're saying that they all look alike, or
Yeah, like the Raw brand titles are all going to look alike now, and now the SmackDown titles, it's like they're going in that direction again.
yeah, I think maybe that's the plan, right? I would think that's the plan. I mean, they're so far above wrestling fans' minds right now. They're so into the wrestling business, the art of the wrestling business. I mean, they're doing some calculations and things that we have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they have it down to, I'm sure, how many T-shirts are sold a day by what talent. I'm sure they have broken down ratings to minute by minute, probably every half a minute. So our take on some of this stuff, we have no idea what they're doing, and we'd have to be a soothsayer to figure out what they're doing now because it's so above any of us unless we're in there every day and that's our department and we know what's going on. Pretty, it's no longer just the wrestling business, it's the business of wrestling now.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think of how they could hyper focus on something if they wanted to and see how they're doing business wise with that, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, another question that came in for you, interesting because we were talking to Mr. Perfect a couple weeks ago, Curt Hennig, obviously in WCW. They're wondering why Hennig was in the Wolfpack and then out of the Wolfpack. He turned on them, turned heel, and went NWO Hollywood. Was there any specific reason why he didn't stick with the Wolfpack?
No, they were Scott and Kurt were very tight. Kevin was tight with uh, Kurt, but Kurt and Scott had been tag team partners in the AWA, and they were really tight. So It wasn't. I think they were just trying to figure out the best way for Curt to draw money with them, whether with them or working against them.
Did you not like Hennig in WCW as a babyface? Would you actually prefer him as a heel?
Oh yeah, I think he's one of the greatest heels. Good baby face, but that heel thing where he spits the gum out, the towel. I mean, the 300 game bowling. The football.
Yep.
He was just Minnesota's greatest athlete, right?
Absolutely, yes. It
Yeah,
is funny, like to think like he was a good babyface, but he was so much better as a heel. Just like all that stuff, those skits and everything. He just worked so much better as a heel. I think.
yeah, I do
Even
too.
calling yourself perfect, obviously, I mean that's a lot of hubris. I mean, a lot of cockiness doing that.
Right, right.
When you look at Hennig, you definitely were putting him in the wolf pack to have him turn, right? It wasn't going to be a long term thing. He was just in it to turn on them and turn heel.
Yeah, as I'm recalling this, we kind of gave Kurt a free hand to decide what he wanted to do. Because, a guy like Kurt draws money. He knows what to do. You might can help him pushing him in a direction, but I definitely thought he needed to be a heel.
I definitely like him better as a heel for sure. Good as a face, like I said, but definitely better as a heel. Now, another topic that we hadn't discussed previously, and obviously you know him quite well, but that is the Stinger, aka Sting. We only really kind of really touched on it briefly, but he retired from the business at age 64. What did you think when you heard the Stinger was retiring? Were you saying about time, or were you saying, this is was an awesome way to go out?
No, it was an awesome way to go out, and I think he was looking forward to retiring. I think he retired. Well, didn't he retire on his 65th birthday?
It was right around the corner. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, and they did it the right way with his boys. It was done well.
Yeah, his sons were out there. That was really cool. And obviously, one was Wolfpack Sting, one was old school Surfer Sting. Very cool way to do it. That's one thing. Tony Khan may have not get a lot of things right, but he got Sting right. I feel like.
Oh, absolutely, he got that right. I mean, it's funny when you're on a roll, you can't do anything wrong, and you're very smart. Like when they first came out, right? You'd
Yes,
fall into a little off a pattern, and then you're not quite as smart as you were. I don't buy that. It's just that.
the perception of it. So just like the perception that the you got things going right or going wrong, maybe.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the
Like
whole.
you're saying maybe the perception of everything is going right, or maybe the perception
What?
everything is going wrong, not necessarily it actually is.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually going wrong, all the way wrong. But you're competing. Just suppose, take WWE out of the equation. Would people be knocking AEW as much as they do now? It's now they're in a comparison of a race. And just so happens that WWE has hit upon some kind of magical pencil that Paul is wielding that's doing an incredible job, and everything they touch turns to gold. I mean, they're going to have a sellout in Paris. They're going to have a sellout in Scotland. They're going to have a sellout in Bash in Berlin. I mean, how can they not look so gigantic right now? And everything they do is lauded and hailed as the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now, Tony, so some people might have made a couple of errors with the punk thing, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's out of his system, right?
Yep.
But it's, again, comparison. That's why I said it's when you are pushing that snowball uphill and you push it downhill, and when it starts to go downhill and take a life on its own, you can make mistakes, but they turn out to be the right thing. So that's where what I'm saying. It's just hard when you're down to get the snowball back on top of the hill. But when you get it on top of the hill and it starts to roll down, you pick up momentum, and everything you do is right. When you're down at the bottom of the hill, it's hard to push that back up. So
Yeah, AEW is definitely in the bottom of the hill right now. They're struggling. They're not doing that great. And hey, it's crazy to think, with Sting, he's 64 years old, just turned 65, but losing him, it seems like it was a big deal because his show that he did at Greensboro Coliseum drew about 16,000 people. Um, People were very, very interested in that, and basically since then, man, I mean, not that he's the end all be all, but obviously he was a draw for them to a certain extent, and they really struggled. They've got nobody right now. It seems like, even though they have a good roster.
okay, you're saying they don't have nobody over, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
Yes. Yep.
in basically one swoop, they lost Cody, they lost Jay Guile, right?
Yep.
They lost Punk, Andrea. What's the other kid? Ricky.
Oh, Ricky Starks? No, he's still there.
Yeah. Oh, he is.
Yeah, he just hasn't really been on TV, but he's still there.
Okay, but they lost a lot of people. Okay, and they also lost Sting, who's been, you know, one of the top drawers for the last 30 years. They've lost a lot of people, and yet their talent is superb. So now we go into a scientific project here. Does great five-star matches draw you ratings or the
No,
storylines
I think it's more storyline driven for sure.
in this day and age?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just, I don't know, just a little baffled by some of the stuff that goes on over there. But you're right, losing Sting and losing all those guys was definitely bad. When you look at Sting and his exit, him and Darby were the final team. They wrestled the Young Bucks. Sting and Darby, who were the AEW Tag Team Champs at that point, went over. They did get the win over the Jacksons, Matthew and Nicholas. The Young Bucks. It was a 21-minute match. Greensboro Coliseum, like I said, about 16,000 people sold out. They actually had to add in some seats. They did some production kills because they wanted to get as many people in there as possible. So really good business for them, for AEW. But the only thing was that was kind of a one-time thing because Sting is 64, going to be 65, and he's retiring, and that's the icon, and he's gone. So it was good for one-night business. What can you do after that? They haven't been able to do much after that. So on one hand, it's awesome, and everything they did from that night is great. And then after that, it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. Do you?
No, no idea. It just seems like I don't know. Maybe his loss is bigger than has been speculated. Like you're thinking about Sting and his career. I feel like he was a big draw for them.
You didn't feel like he was a big draw?
No, I did. I felt like he was a big draw, but there were so many
Oh
people
yeah,
online that said that he wasn't. But I don't know. I felt like he was for them.
I kind of agree with you. I did too.
Did you know how his relationship with Tony Khan started to begin with? Did you have any idea?
Have no idea.
So his son tried out for the Jacksonville
Oh,
Jaguars a
that's
few
right.
years
Yeah,
ago. So that's how he met him. Like people wondering, like, oh, this person must have introduced him. No, he found out that it's Steve Borden's son was trying out for the Jaguars. Obviously, he's a part of the organization, Tony, with his dad.
right.
So that's how he got a relationship with Sting because his son was trying out for the Jaguars. So that's how Sting came to AEW.
Wow, that's amazing.
Obviously Tony's a huge fan. He loves Sting. Maybe he would have found out a way to contact him and get him in to begin with. But man, that's perfect for him. You know,
Yeah,
perfect way to get him in. Hey, you interested in wrestling? You want to hop aboard AEW?
yeah, that sounds great. That's a great idea. That's a storyline in itself.
And of course, his son never ended up making the team, but that's okay because Tony ends up getting the Stinger to come to AEW. So it kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, before I get into his debut and all this other stuff, why do people question Sting's love for the business? What is that all about? Have you ever noticed a question mark as far as Sting's love of the business?
I don't know why people would question that. Explain that to me. I don't understand it. Explain why they would question that.
So for whatever reason, they have this in their head that he doesn't love the business, even though he was in the business for 40 years. I've heard a few people say that, a few of the like Meltzer and even Russo and a bunch of the guys, pundits or whatever you want to call them, journalists, dirt sheet guys, they've said that, oh, he was never a fan. He does, so he didn't love the business because he wasn't a fan. That was like their big point of contention. They said, "Oh, he's just doing this for the money." It's like, well, to stick around for 40 years, I don't know. There's a point where you got to say you got to love. He loves the business, no?
I just don't understand how people could say that. That is so far, far-flung fantasy. You should have a aluminum hat on your head. I mean, the guy got his knees destroyed, right? Pulling off the cage,
Yep.
came back as quick as he could. He was always there when you needed him. I don't understand because maybe he didn't know who Jim Lundis was. That makes him not a fan. He certainly used to watch the matches when he first started. I don't understand that. I just don't. I mean, I can't even. You've knocked my socks off so bad I can't commentate on that.
Very strange because I've heard that a bunch, and I said, "Wait, how is he not loving the business? He literally was in it for 40 years. How does that not love?" Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Always surprised. I think because they're trying to create like a narrative that he's like a money guy. He just did it for the money. Like it's like they're all trying to create their own narrative, and then they feed that narrative with whatever story.
What, he wasn't supposed to get paid? Do you
Like,
understand when you're saying stuff like that? That not you, but people that
yeah,
say that, how bizarre that is?
it is strange. Like people always said about Hogan as well. Isn't it a business? And Hogan would always say it's a shoot, meaning that he wants to make the most money because he's treating it like a shoot, like it's not a work, like he's doing this for
Right,
real, like real money.
right. And it is. The trips were brutal. The matches were tough. I mean, I this baffles me. Everybody's an expert too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The thing is too with Sting. Okay, so he could have been out of the business in 2001, came to TNA for a long time, longer than maybe he could have, or really, maybe even should have at one point. But he was great in TNA, stayed there for a while. Then he went to WWE, got inducted to the Hall of Fame, had a title match, short run, of course, but he hurt his neck. So after he hurt his neck, and he's in his 50s now, he hurt his neck. He still comes back and he wrestles 20 something matches, 30 matches for AEW. So, man, just crazy to when people say stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't even think we should waste time. I
Yep.
mean, those are the people that in the Middle Ages were sitting on the wall and we were watching them fall off. They're adults. They're adults. They play with their lips. I mean, God. And they're experts. Oh,
Yes.
please,
Yes.
please.
So he makes his debut 12/2/2020 in Jacksonville on Dynamite, basically in front of very few fans because COVID, the pandemic was going on, but they did allow some people in because of the outdoor part of that stadium in Jacksonville. He makes his debut. He saves Dustin Cody and Darby Allin from Team Taz and basically starts his relationship with Darby Allin right then and there. They become joint in the hip. He becomes the mentor to Darby Allin, the protege, and they team a lot going forward. Basically, all his matches are with Darby Allin going forward. They're all tag matches or six-man tags or multi-man matches.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah.
no no singles, but he's really going to have. Is that the smart way to do it? Do you like that's what they're going to do with Sting in his last run?
Oh, I think it was you know, do you remember the table spot?
Oh
Where
yeah.
we don't want that to happen before he retires, right?
Yep.
He would have got hooked up with the competitiveness to do something like that, and that's what he did. Uh, I think it was really done well. It kind of protected him from himself that he didn't get, and those guys get, especially his partner gets injured, right? And hurt.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I think they did the right thing for sure there.
When you look at it too, it was like an interesting pairing. At first, you didn't kind of know what they were doing, but obviously, it's all trying to get Darby over. It's all about the rub of Sting onto Darby.
That's all it was to get Darby over.
Do you think in that last match? I know we'll get to it. I just want to before I forget to mention this. Do you think that glass spot was needed in that last match for with Darby Allin? That we jumped off the ladder into the glass?
My thoughts are why do that? Things could have turned very bad. Shards of glass could have went in the audience, could have went in Sting's eye, could have went in Darby's eye, their opponent's eyes. Why?
I was thinking it obviously that too, but I was thinking, isn't that going to take away from Sting's moment that he's taking this insane bump?
Well, you got to continue on. You know what I mean? But I just didn't like the glass. But that's my opinion and my taste. Some people might have loved it, so I'm not sure.
Man, eventually Darby Allin would get hurt in a match with Jay White, and before he was going to climb Mount Everest, so he was not. He's not doing that. He's out with a leg injury right now. But man, you're right. It could have been worse as far as just an injury at that pay per view at the Revolution pay per view.
Right, right.
When you look at Darby and Sting, do you actually like them? Do you think they mesh well together? Do you think they have good chemistry together?
Oh, absolutely. It's like Batman and Robin. I mean, now Robin's going to turn into Batman. I think it was well done. That was one of the things they really did well.
If you're booking this, would you put Sting with Darby or would you put him with somebody else?
Who would you put him with? Tell me who you put him with.
I'm not sure. I haven't even really thought about it. I was just thinking if you thought Darby and him was like the kind of you can't get more perfect than that. You like that combination.
Yeah, I mean, they very similar gimmick. Darby's into this time. Not saying Sting's not, but he's over for 30 or 40 years. He's a generational star, and you just gave the anointment to Darby. So I think it was done very, very well.
Do you think that he should have turned on him at all? Do you think Darby should have turned heel on
No,
Sting or no?
no, no.
Why not?
Why? What turn? Okay, you turn him heel, right? On Sting. Sting's retiring. What's that going to do?
Well, I was thinking maybe Darby goes over him. That's his last match. Darby gets the win. Really put him over.
But where do they go from that?
Oh, I have no idea. I was thinking maybe Darby gets some sort of big push.
Isn't he getting pushed as a babyface?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, before the injury, who knows? Because then he got injured directly right after the Sting match. So
Right,
probably that's probably where they were going.
right. They were going to be. He was going to take, in my head, Sting's spot. He was going to be this generation's Sting. Who are you going to make this generation's Sting?
Right. I guess it could work for him.
Yeah,
So you're okay. You're okay with no singles matches for Sting though in this run.
yeah. I think so. I think so. I think that was Sting's call too.
His age probably did play a factor. I'm guessing played a factor in wanting that. You know, he's in his 60s. He probably needs somebody to kind of carry most of the load, or at least half the load, as far as his wrestling.
Yeah, and your injuries start to wake up with you every morning when you hit that 60 mark.
You know what's great about him? Not that he doesn't look great without the makeup, but the makeup help. You almost forget that, and the way he moves, you almost forget that he's 64, 65 years old because of how well he moves. And the makeup, you know, you can't tell how old he is with the face paint.
Right, right. He's done that was he's been very, very smart.
Crazy. Some guys that get to that age, they could barely move. They could barely walk. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And he's jumping off, literally jumping off balconies, right?
Well,
And
yeah.
falling off stuff. Yeah, he's crazy. Taking huge bumps.
When did he take all these huge bumps? Early or at the end of his career? I didn't see this at the end. Did you?
Yep, all of his AEW matches towards the latter part of his career. Yeah, he would jump. He was jumping off of balconies. He jumped off of a high rise thing onto two tables, and the tables collapsed. Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
He took insane bumps in AEW.
yeah. I saw her at the end, but I'm not gonna say those were pre-planned and they were safe. Those weren't. Some of the guys do now. Just do something. I'm sure he wasn't gonna put himself at risk, knowing he was getting ready to retire.
Yep.
Yeah,
Can you
He did some great bumps, but I'm sure they had walked through that, made it as safe as they possibly could for him.
can you believe that he would do that? Because you know, at this point in his career, he's got nothing to prove. He doesn't have to do that stuff.
Yeah, it's his pride. For a guy that doesn't love the business, he sure did some crazy shit not loving the business.
Right. He must love it a little bit. Yeah.
No, he
I
ain't.
was just
He's
I
just
was
here
just
for
like
money.
right, exactly, exactly. I was just surprised that, like, okay, he's in his 60s at this point, and he's taking some of the bump. He didn't take some of those bumps when he was 30. You know what I mean? He didn't like
Right,
off of the balcony stuff and like crazy stuff.
right, right.
You know how they said like rubbed off on Darby. You know, he gave him the rub. I think Darby's craziness rubbed off on Sting. You know what I mean? Like that daredevil attitude rubbed off on Sting.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. He was keeping up with the kid, which was very good.
Yep.
Yeah,
When you look at his run, too, okay, he's not going to be main eventing or anything like that. Obviously, like I mentioned, he's going to be in mostly tag matches with Darby or six mans or multi-man matches with Darby Allen, but he's not going to be necessarily wrestling all top guys or main eventers. Like his first match there was just a street fight on the Revolution pay-per-view from Daily Display Jacksonville in 2021. He defeated Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, who are part of Team Taz. So, not really highly love that though. He's not. He's Sting. He's got a huge name. People are interested in him, but he's not really wrestling anybody too high up on the card. Is that the smart way to go about it because of his age, or what do you think
Yeah,
about that?
he's an attraction. You're having people come out to see Sting because they know it's getting close to the end. He's a giant attraction. He's giving you, and he's gonna rub his just Darby having him with him gives Darby a hell of a run. You protect Sting on the way out, and that was designed, and I think it was designed very well to end it that way.
One thing about Sting, besides his famous phrase "nothing's for sure," the one thing though he would always get a good reaction. He like who could sometimes be a little fickle or strange with some of the guys that they root for. They really showed him respect and always got a big pop when he came out. Like he was always popular with the AEW crowd. Does that surprise you at all? Just given the fact that they can be audience.
No, he's Sting, right?
Yep,
I mean, they grew up watching him. They grew up rooting for him. Yeah.
they could be they could be a strange fan base though. There's no doubt about that. Some of the stuff that they enjoy.
Well, they sort of remind me of ECW fan base.
How so?
Well, do you think that ECW was playing to the mainstream?
No, nope,
So that means then you think AEW is playing the mainstream?
no, definitely not.
No, that's why I said they're very similar, I think.
Well, I think the ECW fans were a little bloodthirsty. They were nuts. Those fans.
Well, we're talking about two incidents of glass, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, that is true. With
You
some
said
some guys,
Sting.
and yeah, yeah,
You
you're right.
said
Yeah,
Sting was jumping off a balcony.
yep, pulling a new jack. Yep,
Uh, Moxley, who I think is excellent, he gets a little juice once in a while.
yes, every
So
match.
you don't think there's a
Oh, I could see
connecting
it.
of the dots?
I could see it. I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure where you were going with it, but I could see that. What do you think about Moxley being the IWGP World Champion now? He just won the New Japan Heavyweight Championship.
I think it's great. It's great. I really like Moxley.
Were you surprised at all that he won it? I was shocked.
Why were you shocked?
Just because he's not a regular there, like, or maybe he will be going forward. But I was
Where did this take place?
in Chicago.
Chicago. Doesn't that tell you something?
Obviously, New Japan and AEW are going to be doing a lot more business together.
Right. You knew that going into it, right?
Yeah, but I just didn't think he would win because usually
In
the
Chicago.
IWGP champion.
In
Yeah,
Chicago? You thought he was going
I,
to lose in Chicago?
yeah, I did. Yeah, because I didn't think he'd be a regular there, so I figure he's not going to win the title.
Okay, they may not be regulars there, but who basically Chicago's their home base, AEW, right? That's where
Pretty
they
much,
started.
pretty
Pretty
much,
much, or is that where they started?
and that's where Tony's born, or around Chicago. Yeah,
Right. I don't think that didn't surprise me at all because of the situation. Now, in Tokyo, it might have been different.
right.
Yeah.
And something tells me there'll be a rematch in Tokyo, and he won't be leaving with the title. That's my guess.
I think that they'll have a rematch at one of the AEW pay per views.
Where he'll lose, Moxley.
Have a controversial finish and then maybe go to Japan and drop it. They could have a series that would last quite a while.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Back to the Stinger. He beats Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky in a tag team match with Darby at Double or Nothing. They beat 2.0, which is Parker and Lee, in a tag match. They beat FTR in a tag match. They beat the Gun Club. Then on a Dynamite Holiday Bash episode, FTR and MJF lose to Darby, Sting, and CM Punk, who donned the face paint that night,
Yeah.
which was cool and obviously a big sign of respect. You don't hear too much disrespect for Sting. You don't really hear too many people say anything bad about Sting as far as in the business. Am I correct on that?
Well, yeah, you're correct. Unless you're one of the people that say he just was in it for the money. Yeah.
Right. No, but I mean like the actual wrestlers, not
Oh,
those people,
no,
like the
no.
actual wrestlers.
The wrestlers admire him, and rightfully so.
Then Sting and Darby defeated the Acclaimed in a tornado match. Sting, Darby, and Sammy Guevara defeated Andrade, Cassidy, and Matt Hardy. In another tag team match, Darby, Shingo, and Sting defeated the Bullet Club, Phantasmo, and the Young Bucks. Darby, Sting, and Miro defeated the House of Black.
Ah,
Darby and Sting in a tag match defeated the House of Black. Darby and Sting also defeated Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Then we go to Japan. It was Great Muta's final match. Well, really, final bye bye, one of his last matches. It was a big show for Pro Wrestling Noah at the Yokohama Arena in Yokohama, Japan. Darby, Sting, and Great Muta defeated Hakushi, Marufuji, and Akira. So pretty awesome to think that Muta and Sting, and this was last year, this was 2023, but to think of Sting and Muta together one last time and this time in Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah this time.
yeah, it was great. It was great. They were a big draw together, so it was wonderful to see that.
Very cool that Sting was a part of that because obviously he was part of Muta's final tour, and Sting was a huge part of getting Muta over and a huge part of his career. Really, I feel like helped get Muta over here in the States.
Right, he did.
One thing about Sting that is almost underappreciated, he got Muta over, right? Big time. He got Vader over big time. He got Cactus Jack over. Those are some three pretty damn big names in the business that
Yeah,
kind of went through the stinger and he helped get over.
yeah, he did. He
Do you
certainly did.
you agree with that assessment that I'm making that he got
Yeah.
those helped get those guys over?
Oh, without doubt, he helped get him over.
Then Sting, Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy defeated Kip Sabian, the Butcher, and the Blade. Darby, Sting, Orange Cassidy, and Keith Lee defeated the Mogul Embassy. There is
So
another New Japan
we
AEW show that he was in.
we can
Yes.
run down this lineup. He didn't lose, did he?
Nope. That's what I was getting to. He never
Yeah,
lost. Undefeated
yeah,
in AEW, won all of his matches. Do you like that?
absolutely. I mean, it was good on the card. It wasn't a main event. It helped people to elevate. He was an attraction. He became an attraction at the end. Uh, when the Giant was an attraction, did he lose?
No. Rare or rarely, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. One of the biggest mistakes WWE ever made was beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania, right?
Yep.
So you gotta, when a guy's an attraction, you want the people to go home feeling happy with that match. You can't do it on the main event. You have to have heat, and eventually you pay it off. But you can't have an attraction. That attraction spot is to make people feel good, for them to get a pop, for their superhero to go over and defeat the villain.
So you're saying don't beat the attraction ever, though? You don't want to ever have him lose?
Why would you beat him?
I don't know, maybe really get somebody over?
Okay, if his spot is to make people feel happy, right? This is just my opinion. If his spot is to make people feel happy, then they go and see him. Next time he comes to town, are they going to be reluctant to go and see him?
Possibly, yes. Maybe you didn't pay to watch him lose. Well, you want to get that good time feel.
I always go back to boxing. What was Ali's last 6 fights? He didn't have a knockout, and there was fights that we turn our heads on decisions. The Kenny Nortons, Jimmy Young, because he's Ali. We didn't pay to see Ali at the end get beat. When he first started, we did, but not at the end, because he was Ali. An attraction got to be taken care of in a special way. He got to that position because he connected with the people. He's going out, the people know it. He's got a limited time left. You're going to be the guy that makes the people feel happy.
That's a good point. What about when they're retiring? Because in this instance, the Young Bucks lose. Still no? Still don't? You still don't want to beat them?
Do you know how much flack Tony would have gotten? If the Young Bucks aren't over by now, beating Sting isn't going to help. Because here's the main thing, JP. Where's the payoff if he retires? They just
Right.
beat they just beat a guy that's 65 years old and retired.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we overthink this. You know
I
what I
actually
mean?
like I actually like what they said after Sting retired after they lost. They didn't mention the loss. They just go, "Oh, we retired him. He's not. He won't wrestle here anymore." Like they just played it up like heels, and obviously the crowd got angry, saying, "You lost. What do you mean they're not here anymore?" They're like, "Nope, we retired him."
Yeah, they did a great job. They did what a heel's supposed to do.
Looking back to they
Looking
won
back
all in
to
London, so you got that big pop Sting in front of that huge crowd over there. He got the team with Edge, which Edge was apparently said that Sting was the reason he got into the business. Was a huge, I guess, grew up in. I know he's from Canada, but he did grow up a lot, I guess, in North Carolina for whatever reason. But he was a huge Sting fan. I know he lives in North Carolina now, but huge Sting fan as well. Jericho got to team with him, so kind of got a bunch of quote unquote legendary guys that got to team with him too on the way out. That I'm sure might have been on their bucket list or something that they wanted to do. That I'm sure they said to Tony, like Jericho or Edge has that type of sway with like, hey, we really want to team with Sting.
Right, right.
Which I think is cool. But basically, I think he was 28-0 in AEW, all multi-man matches, but he was undefeated, goes out on top, goes out beating the Bucks at the Revolution pay-per-view. The pay-per-view was wrapped around him, so it was all about him. His kids were out there. Tony, as much as he's done some crazy things, he did that right.
Yeah, it was very good. Very good. We're gonna miss Sting.
Now, looking back, and obviously, we've talked about him plenty on the show. We talked about his WCW run on a prior episode. We're talking
Right.
about his final crusade here, his final run, his retirement here. What's his legacy? How could you wrap Sting up, and what's his stamp or legacy on the business?
He's one of the greatest of all times.
Where do you rank him on the all-time list?
You can't do that. I'll give you an example why you can't do that. You may know who Jim Landis is, right?
Yes,
Okay. Do you think many people know who Jim Landis is?
not a chance. Nope.
Okay. Would they be shocked to know that he drew more money than anybody till this day in the history of the business?
They would be shocked. Yep.
Okay. So how do you not even know who he is? And he's not. And during the Depression, he was drawing 35,000 people to Comiskey Park, to Braves Field in Boston, to every big outside uh, Yankee Stadium. Think about that, Yankee Stadium. So where I'm going with this is every era has their guys. Certainly, he reaches up to the top 10 from the 80s through his retirement.
I love that. I agree.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny with Londos. I mentioned him to somebody because I said, "Oh, he's one of the biggest draws," and they said, "Never heard of him." Blah blah blah. But I was talking to somebody who really knows the business, and they said you'd have to put like different Mount Rushmores together, and just like you said, put him in age like brackets, like, hey,
Right.
20s, 30s, 40s. Londo's
Right.
is in it, Fez is in it, certain things. Like you almost have to break it off. But I was surprised that some people that actually follow wrestling didn't know who Londos was. I was like, wow, you guys got to look at the biggest draws ever in the business,
Right.
Londos.
Yeah. And going back to, not only did they not know that, they didn't know a promoter from Boston ran the whole North America. It wasn't a McMahon. It was Paul Bowser. He had his own champion, AWA champion, which the NWA allowed him to have. Think about that. One of the
Crazy.
reigns that Luthez had was being AWA champion. So, it's crazy. It's a very mixed blend of professional wrestling, what it's done. And that's why I don't think you can compare anybody, the four guys. They have to be, like you said, from 20s, 30s, and 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, the 80s, 90s, 2000. Yeah. Because you don't want to leave guys out that really paved the way.
Yep. Hey, didn't I just see your buddy Tom Burke on TV last week?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a he's a real knowledgeable guy. I mean, he just sent me some programs that were from the 30s.
Whoa,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I knew you'd get a kick out of seeing him. I knew it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's a good guy.
Let's wrap this
Well,
bad boy up. You follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Two Man Power Trip. Kevin, what do you got going on in this crazy world?
I'll be in Minneapolis this weekend for the Comic Con. So come on out and see me and say hello. Tell us, tell me how me and John are doing. Okay.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next time. Have a good one, folks.